Good morning, students. So say your prayer. Thank you. நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்ல ஆசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். Okay, students, good morning. Take your social science book. Come to page number 108. So in today's class, we will discuss about the non-Brahmin movement. So the Justice Ministry, so the first political party, so started in India, so which contested the elections that held in the year 1920. So for the first time in India, so elections were conducted in the year 1920. In Madras Presidency, Justice Party formed the first ministry. So we will discuss about the Justice Party. Then we will discuss about the important events so that took place in the year 1920s. So after 1920s, so already we have discussed about that Rowlatt Satyagraha, then non-cooperation movement, then Quit India movement, like that, no? So we are going to discuss about this movement in Tamil Nadu. So during those movement, what happened in Tamil Nadu, we will discuss in this class. Okay, va? So recall what we discussed in our previous class. So in our previous class, so just we discussed about the early nationalist strings in Tamil Nadu. So the first association, so Madras Native Association. So who started the Madras Native Association? Gajulu Lakshmi Narasu, Srinivasanar and their associates in the year 1852. So we discussed about the contribution of Madras Native Association. Then the beginning of the nationalist press. So the need for starting a press. So starting the newspapers in India by the Indians. So we discussed about the Hindu and Swadeshi Mitran. Then we discussed about Madras Mahajana Sabha. So so some of its demands were later adopted by Indian National Congress. Then we discussed about the moderate phase. So Indian National Congress, so their sessions. So it was the first session was held in 1885 at Bombay. Then the third session was held at Thousand Lights. So initially it was called as Mackey's Garden in 1887 in Madras. Then we discussed about the Swadeshi movement. So the role of V.O. Chidambaram. He started the Swadeshi Steam Navigation Company. Then we discussed about the Tirunelveli uprising. So in which V.O. was arrested and he was forced to pull the oil. So he was forced to pull the heavy oil press. So we have discussed that also. Then we discussed about the revolutionary activities in Tamil Nadu. Then finally about Ash murder. So Collector Ash. So he was the collector of Tirunelveli. He was shot dead by Vanjinathan of Sengotai in Maniachi Junction. Then finally we discussed about Annie Besant and her home rule movement. Annie Besant, she was an Irish lady and the leader of the Theosophical Society. She proposed the home rule movement. So we have discussed these things in our previous class. So today we will discuss first about non-Brahmin movement and the challenge to the Congress, and then about non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement, and finally about Quit India struggle. Okay, va? South Indian Liberal Federation. So South Indian Liberal Federation. The non-Brahmins organized themselves into political organizations to protect their interest. So the non-Brahmins, so the people who were not Brahmins, so they organized themselves into political organizations to protect their interest. In 1912, the Madras Dravidian Association was founded. In 1912, the Madras Dravidian Association was founded. C. Nadesanar so played an active role as its secretary. So in 1912, the Madras Dravidian Association was formed by the non-Brahmins. So because they want to organize themselves into a political organization in order to protect their interest. So C. Nadesanar played an active role as the secretary of Madras Dravidian Association. In June 1916, he established the Dravidian Association Hostel for the non-Brahmin students. So in Madras in 1916 June month, C. Nadesanar, he established the Dravidian Association Hostel for the non-Brahmin students. So because during the time in Madras, it is very difficult for the non-Brahmins to get hostels, so to stay there, because most of the hostels, so they were run by the Brahmins and they allow only the Brahmin students to stay there. So C. Nadesanar in the year 1916 June month, he established the Dravidian Association Hostel so for the non-Brahmin students. On 20th November 1916, a meeting of about 30 non-Brahmins was held under the leadership of P. Tyagarajar, Dr. T. M. Nair and C. Nadesanar at Victoria Public Hall in Chennai. So on 20th November 1916, a meeting of about 30 non-Brahmins, so 30 non-Brahmins was held under the leadership of P. Tyagarajar, Dr. T. M. Nair and C. Nadesanar at Victoria Public Hall in Chennai. So there they founded a party called as the South Indian Liberal Federation to promote the interest of the non-Brahmins. So on 20th November 1916 at Victoria Hall, so a meeting was held under the leadership of P. Tyagarajar, Dr. T. M. Nair and C. Nadesanar. So in that, so nearly 30 non-Brahmins participated. So they founded the federation party called as the South Indian Liberal Federation. So in order to promote the interest of the non-Brahmins. So thus the non-Brahmins. So they organized themselves into a political organization. So first in 1912, the Madras Dravidian Association was founded. In the year 1916, so June month, C. Nadesanar so established the Dravidian Hostel for the non-Brahmins. Then in the year 1916, so in the same year 1916, on 20th November, so they founded a party called as South Indian Liberal Federation. So a meeting of about 30 non-Brahmins was held under the leadership of P. Tyagarajar, Dr. T. M. Nair and C. Nadesanar at Victoria Public Hall in Chennai and founded the South Indian Liberal Federation to promote the interest of the non-Brahmins. Justice Ministry. So the Congress boycotted the elections of 1920. Do you know why? So because of the non-cooperation movement. So already in 8th unit we have discussed, so because of non-cooperation movement, so the Congress boycotted the elections of 1920. So in Madras Presidency, Justice Party won 63 of 98 elected seats in the Legislative Council. So the Justice Party, that is the South Indian Liberal Federation. So why it was called as Justice Party? Because they published a newspaper called as Justice in English. So in Tamil they published a paper called as Dravidan, and in English, so they published a newspaper called as Justice. So that's why the South Indian Liberal Federation was called as Justice Party. So they contested in the elections held in the year 1920 and won 63 out of 98 elected seats in the Legislative Council. A. Subbarayulu of the Justice Party became the first Chief Minister of Madras Presidency. So A. Subbarayulu, so he was the first Chief Minister. So he became the first Chief Minister, so from Justice Party. In the year 1923 elections, so Raja of Panagal of the Justice Party formed the ministry. So in the elections held in the year 1923, so Raja of Panagal, so from Justice Party, so he formed the ministry. Government's repressive measures. So repressive means so controlling people by force and restricting their freedom. So repressive means so controlling the people by using force and restricting their freedom. So government's repressive measures, that is Rowlatt Act, a draconian, anarchical and revolutionary crime act. A draconian, extremely cruel. Anarchical, a situation in a country, an organization, etc., in which there is no government or control. A situation in which there is no control. So a draconian, a cruel, anarchical, so there is no control. Under Revolutionary Crimes Act, popularly known as the Rowlatt Act. So after the name of Sir Sidney Rowlatt, who headed the committee that recommended it was passed in the year 1919. So in the year 1919, an act so which was cruel. So in that act there is no control. So it was a Revolutionary Crime Act. So it was called as Rowlatt Act. So because it was formed after the recommendation of a committee which was headed by Sir Sidney Rowlatt. It was passed in the year 1919. So under this act, anyone can be imprisoned on charges of terrorism without due judicial process. So under the Rowlatt Act passed in the year 1919, anyone can be arrested. So anyone can be put in jail as he was a terrorist. So he can be put in charge as a terrorist without a formal inquiry. So Indians were aghast at this. So aghast means so filled with horror. So they were angry. So Indians were angry with the Rowlatt Act. So Gandhi gave voice to the anger of the people and he adopted the Satyagraha method that he had used in South Africa. So Gandhi gave voice to the anger of the people and he adopted the Satyagraha method that he had used in South Africa. So government's repression measure, Rowlatt Act. A draconian, a cruel, anarchical, so without control, and Revolutionary Crime Act, so popularly known as Rowlatt Act, which was named after Sir Sidney Rowlatt, who headed the committee that recommended it, was passed in the year 1919. So under this act, anyone can be imprisoned on charges of terrorism, so without an inquiry, so judicial inquiry. Indians were angry at this. So Gandhi gave voice to the anger of the people, and he adopted the Satyagraha method that he had used in South Africa. Then Rowlatt Satyagraha. On 18th March 1919, Gandhi addressed a meeting on Marina Beach. On 18th March 1919, Gandhi addressed a meeting on Marina Beach. On 6th April 1919, Hartal was organized. So Hartal, a mass protest often involving in a total shutdown of workplaces, offices, shops, schools, etc. So a mass protest, so which involved in a total shutdown, so total closing of workplace, offices, shops, schools, colleges, etc. On 6th April 1919, Hartal was organized to protest against the Black Act. So Rowlatt Act was called as Black Act. So protest demonstrations were held at several parts of Tamil Nadu. So many parts of the Tamil Nadu, so many places in Tamil Nadu, so people protested against this Rowlatt Act. So processions for many area of the city so finally converged in the Marina Beach, where there was a large gathering. So processions. A line of people move slowly as a part of ceremony. So processions from many areas of the city so finally met in Marina Beach, where there was a large gathering. So they devoted the whole day to fasting and prayer in the Marina Beach. So the people gathered there, and they devoted the whole day to fasting and prayer in the Marina Beach. So Madras Satyagraha Sabha was formed. So during that time, so Madras Satyagraha Sabha was formed. Rajaji, Kasturi Rangar, Satyamurthy, and George Joseph addressed the meeting. So Rajaji, Kasturi Rangar, Satyamurthy, and George Joseph. So George Joseph, so he was a barrister. So barrister means, so Gandhi was also a barrister. So barrister means, so who can argue in court in London. So like our lawyers. So, and an eloquent speaker. So eloquent, able to use languages and express your opinion well, especially when you are speaking in public. So eloquent means, so able to use language and express your opinions well, especially when you are speaking in public. So George Joseph was a barrister and eloquent speaker. He played an important role in organizing and publishing the cause of Home Rule League in Madurai. So he was born in Chenganur, so which was in Alappuzha, Kerala state. He settled down in Madurai and he practiced as a people's lawyer. So he was fondly called as, so he was affectionately called as Rosapu Durai by the people of Madurai for the services he rendered to the affected communities. So George Joseph, so he also addressed the meeting against the Rowlatt Act. And also a separate meeting of workers was addressed by V. Kalyana Sundaram, so famously called as Trivika. Then B.P. Vadia and VOC. An important aspect of the movement was that the working classes, students and women took part in large numbers. An important act of the Rowlatt Satyagraha was working class people, students and women. So they took part in large numbers. Then the Khilafat movement. So following the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, General Dyer, so who was responsible for it, was not only acquitted of all charges but rewarded. So following the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, so General Dyer, so who was responsible for the incident, so he was not punished, so he was not acquitted, but he was rewarded. Then after the First World War, the Caliph of Turkey, so he was humiliated and he was deprived of all powers. So already you have learned these things in previous lesson. So General Dyer, so he was responsible for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Then Caliph of Turkey, so he was the religious head of Muslims. So Muslims were initially promised that the Caliph was treated properly even after Turkey was defeated in the First World War. But after the First World War, so Turkey was defeated and the Caliph was humiliated. So in order to restore the Caliph, the Khilafat movement was started. In order to restore the Caliph, so the Khilafat movement was started. So Muslims who had largely kept from the nationalist movement now joined it in huge numbers. So Muslims initially, so who were initially stay away from the nationalist movement, after the Khilafat movement, they started in large number. In Tamil Nadu, Khilafat Day was observed on 17th April 1920. In Tamil Nadu, Khilafat Day was observed on 17th April 1920 with a meeting presided over by Maulana Shaukat Ali. So do you know who started the Khilafat movement? Yeah, Maulana Shaukat Ali, then Maulana Muhammad Ali. Yeah, so Maulana Shaukat Ali, so he presided over a meeting so in Tamil Nadu on 17th April 1920, which was observed as the Tamil Nadu Khilafat Day. Yeah, another such conference was held at E Road. So another conference, so another Khilafat movement conference was held at E Road. Then Vaniyambadi was the epicenter of the Khilafat agitation. So Vaniyambadi was the epicenter of the Khilafat agitation. So public protest in order to achieve political change. So Vaniyambadi, so the place, so where the Muslim community live in large number. So it was the epicenter of Khilafat agitation. Then the non-cooperation movement. So till now we discussed about the South Indian Liberal Federation. So who founded the South Indian Liberal Federation? So 30 non-Brahmins under the leadership of P. Tyagaraja, T.M. Nair and C. Nadasenar. Then the Justice Ministry. So who was the first Chief Minister of Madras Presidency? Yes, Subrayulu. Then we discussed about the Rowlatt Act, then Rowlatt Satyagraha, then Khilafat movement. So which day was observed as Tamil Nadu Khilafat Day? 17th April 1920. The non-cooperation movement. So Tamil Nadu was active during the non-cooperation movement. So Tamil Nadu was active during the non-cooperation movement. C. Rajaji and E.V. Ramasamy, EVR, so later known as Periyar, so provided the leadership. So Rajaji and Periyar provided the leadership. So Rajaji, he worked closely with Yaqub Hasan, so founder of the Madras branch of the Muslim League. So Muslim League, so the political party, so finally which demanded for the separate country for Muslims. So Yaqub Hasan, so he was the founder of Madras branch of the Muslim League. So Rajaji worked along with Yaqub Hasan. As a result, the Hindus and the Muslims cooperated closely during the course of movement in Tamil Nadu. So because Rajaji, who worked closely with Yaqub Hasan, so the founder of the Madras branch of Muslim League, so the Hindus and the Muslims cooperated closely so during the course of the non-cooperation movement in Tamil Nadu. So next, no tax campaign and temperance movement. So temperance movement means movement against liquor, movement against alcohol. So no tax campaign. So as part of the non-cooperation movement, in many places cultivators refused to pay taxes. So as the part of the non-cooperation movement. So in order to non-cooperate with the government, so many places, so cultivators, so they refused to pay taxes. A no tax campaign took place in Tanjavur. So councils, schools and courts were boycotted. So because of non-cooperation, so councils, schools and courts were boycotted. So foreign goods were boycotted. So there were a number of worker strike all over region, many of them led by nationalist leaders. So there are a number of worker strike, so all over Tamil Nadu, so all over Madras Presidency, so many of them led by the nationalist leaders. So one of the important thing of the movement in Tamil Nadu was the temperance movement or movement against liquor. So temperance movement. So in Tamil we can say it as Kallukadai Mariyal. So one of the important aspect of the movement in Tamil Nadu was the temperance movement or movement against liquor. In November 1921, it was decided to organize the civil disobedience. In November 1921, it was decided to organize the civil disobedience. Rajaji, Subramania Shastri and EVR were arrested. So Rajaji, Periyar and Subramania Shastri were arrested. So the visit of Prince of Wales on 13th January 1922 was boycotted. So the visit of Prince of Wales, so Prince of Wales, that is from England. So he visited Madras Presidency on 13th January 1922. It was boycotted. In the police repression, 2 were killed and many injured. So the non-cooperation movement was withdrawn in 1922 after the Chauri Chaura incident, in which 22 policemen were killed. So the non-cooperation movement was withdrawn by Mahatma Gandhi in the year 1922. Do you know why? So because of the Chauri Chaura incident. So Chauri Chaura, a place so near to Gorakhpur in Uttar Pradesh. So in that police station, so 22 policemen were killed by the processions. So Gandhi so thought that people didn't understand about non-violence method. So in order to preach the non-violence method, so he withdrew the non-cooperation movement. So all over India, the non-cooperation movement was withdrawn. Then Swarajist and Justist rivalry. So Swaraj Party, then Justice Party rivalry. Yeah. So following the withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement, the Congress was divided between no changers and pro changers. So no changers, so they wanted to continue the boycott of the councils, but the pro changers, so they wanted to contest the elections for the council. Yeah. So Rajaji, along with others, so staunch Gandhian followers opposed the council entry. So Rajaji, along with others, so who were the staunch, strong follower of Gandhi, opposed the council entry. Yeah. Along with Kasturi Rangar and M.A. Ansari, Rajaji advocated the boycott of the councils. Yeah. So opposition to this led to the formation of the Swarajist Party within the Congress by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru. So following the withdrawal of non-cooperation movement, the Congress was divided between no changers and pro changers. So no changers, so they wanted to continue the boycott of the councils, but pro changers, they wanted to contest the election. So there is a split in Congress. So Rajaji, along with others, so they wanted to oppose the council entry. So they were the strong followers of Gandhi. So along with Kasturi Rangar, M.A. Ansari, Rajaji, so he had supported the boycott of the councils. But so some persons in Congress party so wanted to contest the elections. So they were called as pro changers. So they formed a new political party called as Swaraj Party. So this political party was formed by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru. In Tamil Nadu, the Swarajists were led by S. Srinivasanar and S. Satyamurthy. In Tamil Nadu, the Swaraj Party was led by S. Srinivasanar and S. Satyamurthy. Subbarayan ministry. In Madras provincial elections, which held in the year 1926, the Swarajists won the majority of the elected seats. In the Madras provincial elections, which held in 1926, so the Swarajists won the majority of the elected seats. In 1920, Justice Party won the seat. So A. Subbarayan so formed the ministry. Then in the year 1923, again Justice Party won the majority seats and Raja of Panagal formed the ministry. In 1926 elections, Swarajist won the majority, but it did not accept the office in accordance with the Congress policy. So Swarajist Party did not accept the office in accordance with the Congress policy. Instead, they supported an independent P. Subbarayan to form the ministry. Instead, they supported an independent P. Subbarayan to form the ministry. The Swarajists did not contest the 1930 elections, leading to an easy victory for the Justice Party. So the Swarajists did not contest the 1930 elections. So because after the death of Chittaranjan Das in their 1925, so the Swarajist Party lost its importance. So they did not contest the elections in the 1930, so which will lead to the easy victory for the Justice Party. The Justice Party remained in office till 1937. So the Justice Party remained in office till 1937. Then Simon Commission boycott. So in which year Simon Commission was appointed? In the year 1927. So 1927, a statutory commission was constituted under Sir John Simon in order to review the Act of 1919 and also to suggest reforms. So in 1927, a statutory commission was constituted under the head of Sir John Simon in order to review the Act of 1919. So 1919 Act, so Montague-Semford Reforms Act. And also to suggest reforms in that act. However, to the great disappointment of the Indians, it was an all-white commission with not a single member. So the Congress boycotted the Simon Commission. So in the Simon Commission, there is no Indian member. So all were white member. So the Congress boycotted the Simon Commission. In Madras, the Simon boycott propaganda was set up with Satyamurthy as the president. In Madras, the Simon boycott propaganda committee was set up with Satyamurthy as its president. The arrival of Simon Commission in Madras on 18th February 1929. So black flags were waved against the commission. So the Simon Commission arrived in Madras on 18th February 1929. So the commission was set up in the year 1927. So the Simon Commission arrived in Madras on 1929. So the commission was welcomed with black flags. So agitation for the removal of Neil State. So who was Neil? So James Neil of the Madras Fusiliers. So Fusiliers, infantrymen with firearms. So he was brutal in wreaking vengeance at Kanpur, in which many of the English women and children were killed in the Great Rebellion of 1857. So James Neil, so he was a Madras Fusilier. so of the Madras Fusilier, so infantrymen with firearms. He was brutal in wreaking. So wreaking, so to do great damage or harm to do somebody or something. Then vengeance, act of punishing. So he was brutal in punishing the people who are responsible for the Kanpur massacre. So in which many English women and children were killed in the Great Rebellion of 1857. So Neil was later killed by an Indian Sipai. So James Neil, he was later killed by an Indian Sipai. A statue was erected for him at Mount Road in Madras. So a statue for James Neil, so who was responsible for punishing the culprits. So he cruelly punished the persons who were responsible for the Kanpur massacre. So he was killed by an Indian Sipai. So for him, a statue was erected at Mount Road, Madras. So nationalists saw this as an insult to the Indian sediments and organized a series of demonstrations in Madras. The statue was finally moved to Madras Museum when Congress Ministry led by C. Rajaji formed the government in 1937. So we discussed about non-cooperation movement. So non-cooperation movement. So what happened in Tamil Nadu? So the movement was headed over by Rajaji and Periyar. Then we discussed about no tax campaign and temperance movement. Then Swaraj Party and Justice Party rivalry. So from the Swaraj Party, so Subbarayan formed the ministry. So Subbarayan was an independent candidate. But when Swaraj Party refused to form the ministry, so they supported independent candidate P. Subbarayan to form the ministry. Then we discussed about Simon Commission boycott. Then civil disobedience. So towards Purna Swaraj. So the Madras session of the Indian National Congress in 1927 declared complete independence as its goal. So the Madras session of the Indian National Congress held in the 1927 declared complete independence as its goal. So in the 1929 Lahore session of the Congress, so adopted Purna Swaraj as the goal, and 26 January 1930 the national flag was hoisted by Jawaharlal Nehru on the banks of river Ravi as the declaration of independence. So river Ravi, one of the tributary of river Indus. So on the bank of river Ravi, so Jawaharlal Nehru on 26 January 1930 hoisted the national flag. So the Madras session of the Indian National Congress in 1927 declared complete independence as its goal. In the 1929 Lahore session of the Congress, Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence. So Purna means complete. So Swaraj means independence. So own power. So Swaraj, independence, so was adopted as its goal, and on 26 January 1930 the national flag was hoisted by Jawaharlal Nehru on the banks of river Ravi as the declaration of independence. And salt march to Vedaranyam. When the Viceroy did not accept the demands put forward by Gandhi, he launched the civil disobedience movement. So salt satyagraha. So from where he started the salt satyagraha? In his ashram, Sabarmati ashram in Ahmedabad, and he reached Dandi. So nearly it was 241 miles. So at the age of 61, so Gandhi launched the civil disobedience movement. So Rajaji organized and led a salt satyagraha march to Vedaranyam from Tiruchi. So the march started from Tiruchirappalli on 13th April 1930 and reached Vedaranyam in Tanjavur district on 20th April. So salt satyagraha in Tamil Nadu was led by Rajaji. So the march started from Tiruchirappalli on 13th April 1930 and reached Vedaranyam in Tanjavur district on 20th April. A special song was composed for the march of Salt Satyagraha by Namakkal V. Ramalinganar with the lines, Yavarish Ahad, sans sword, sans bloodshed, join this march. So Yavarish Ahad, sans means without. Yavarish Ahad, without sword, without bloodshed. So join this march. See in Tamil, so the song go like this. Katti intri rattam intri yuddham ondru varugadu sattiyathin pudalvar neer adil servir. So like that. So katti intri yuddham intri yuddham ondru varugadu. So katti intri rattam intri yuddham ondru varugiradu. So despite a brutal crackdown by the police, the marching satyagrahis were provided a warm reception along the road. On reaching Vedaranyam, 12 volunteers under the leadership of Rajaji broke the salt law by picking up salt. So Rajaji was arrested. So T.S.S. Rajan, Rukmani Lakshmipati, Sardar Vedaratnam, C. Swaminathan and K. Sandanam were among the prominent leaders who participated in the Vedaranyam salt satyagraha. So when the Viceroy did not accept the demands put forward by Gandhi, he launched the civil disobedience movement. So salt satyagraha. Rajaji organized and led a salt satyagraha march to Vedaranyam. So the march started from Tiruchirappalli on 13th April 1930 and they reached Vedaranyam in Tanjavur district on 20th April. A special song was composed for the march by Namakkal V. Ramalinganar. So he was probably called as Namakkal poet. So Namakkal Kavinyar. So with the lines, a war is ahead, sans sword, sans bloodshed, join this march. Despite a brutal crackdown by the police, the marching satyagrahis were provided a warm welcome along the route. So on reaching Vedaranyam, 12 volunteers under the leadership of Rajaji broke the salt law by picking up salt. Rajaji was arrested. T.S.S. Rajan, Rukmani Lakshmipati, Sardar Vedaratnam, C. Swaminathan and K. Sandanam. So they were among the prominent leaders who participated in the Vedaranyam salt satyagraha. So widespread agitation in Tamil district. So the satyagrahis under the leadership of T. Prakasam and K. Nageshwara Rao set up a camp at Udayavanam near Madras. So the satyagrahis under the leadership of T. Prakasam and K. Nageshwara Rao set up a camp at Udayavanam near Madras. However, the police arrested them. So the police arrested T. Prakasam and Nageshwara Rao. It led to a hostel in Madras. So the clashes with the police in Trivilikeni, which lasted for 3 hours on 27th April 1930, left 3 dead. So the clashes with the police in Madras in Tiruvallikeni led to the death of 3 people. So volunteers who attempted to offer salt satyagraha in Rameswaram were arrested. So volunteers who attempted to offer salt satyagraha in Rameswaram were arrested. Mill workers strike work across the province. So mill workers, they involved in strike all over the provinces. Women participated energetically. So women participated enthusiastically. Rukmani Lakshmipati was the first woman to pay penalty for the violation of salt laws. So Rukmani Lakshmipati, she was the first woman. So in order to pay penalty for the violation of salt law. So penalty, like a fine. So police used brutal forces to suppress the movement. So Bhashyam, he was popularly known as Arya. So he hoisted the national flag atop Fort St. George on 26 January 1932. So remember, it was a brave incident because Fort St. George, it was under the full control of the British. So in that fort, Bhashyam, he hoisted the Indian national flag on 26 January 1932. So what was the importance of 26 January? So it was celebrated as the Independence Day all over India on 1930. So in that day, Bhashyam, he hoisted the national flag atop Fort St. George. So that's why it was a brave incident. So the satyagrahis under the leadership of T. Prakasam and K. Nageshwara Rao set up a camp at Udayavanam near Madras. However, the police arrested them, which led to a hostel in Madras. So in the clash with the police in Tiruvallikeni, 3 were dead on 27th April 1930. So volunteers who attempted to offer salt satyagraha in Rameswaram were arrested. So women also participated enthusiastically. Rukmani Lakshmipati was the first woman to pay penalty for the violation of salt law. So Bhashyam, who was popularly known as Arya, he hoisted the national flag atop Fort St. George on 26 January 1932. Martyrdom of Tirupur Kumaran. So martyrdom means who gave his life for some cause. So martyrdom, who gave his life for the cause of something. On 11th January 1932, a procession carrying national flag and singing patriotic songs were brutally beaten by the police in Tirupur. So on 11th January 1932, a procession, a group of people, who was marching. So they carry the national flags and singing patriotic songs. So they were brutally beaten by the police in Tirupur. So O.K.S.R. Kumaraswamy, popularly known as Tirupur Kumaran, fell dead holding the national flag aloft. So aloft means high in the air. So O.K.S.R. Kumaraswamy. So he was popularly known as Tirupur Kumaran. So he fell dead without leaving the national flag. So he was hailed as Kodikatha Kumaran. So Tirupur Kumaran. So he was praised as Kodikatha Kumaran. So then first Congress ministry. In the 1937 elections, the Congress emerged victorious. So in the year 1937, elections held all over India. So the provincial elections were held. In that, the Congress decided to contest the election. So they emerged victorious. So already we have discussed this also. So out of 11 provinces, in 7 provinces, Congress emerged victorious. In Madras province, so Congress won many seats. So the Justice Party was trounced. So trounced means so defeat completely. So the Justice Party was defeated completely. So Congress victory in the elections clearly indicated its popularity with the people. So Congress victory in the provinces in the elections so clearly indicates that it was very popular among the people. So Rajaji formed the first Congress ministry. So Rajaji formed the first Congress ministry. So he introduced prohibition on liquor on an experimental basis in Salem. So Rajaji introduced prohibition on an experimental basis in Salem. In order to compensate for the loss of the revenue, he introduced a tax called as sales tax. When the British involved in the India in the Second World War without consulting the elected Congress ministries, the latter resigned. So in the elections 1937, the Congress emerged victorious, which proved that Congress was popular among the people. So Justice Party was defeated completely. So Rajaji formed the first Congress ministry in 1937, and he introduced prohibition on an experimental basis in Salem. In order to compensate the loss of revenue, he introduced sales tax. When the British involved India in the Second World War without consulting the elected Congress ministry, so the whole Congress ministry resigned. Anti-Hindi agitation. So one of the controversial measure. So controversy means so public discussion and argument about something that many people strongly disagree or disapprove or lacked of. So controversy means so public discussion and argument about something that many people strongly disagree. So one of the controversial measures of Rajaji was the introduction of Hindi as a compulsory subject in schools. So one of the important measure, one of the so controversial measure by Rajaji was the introduction of Hindi as a compulsory subject in schools. So this was considered to be a form of Aryan and North Indian imposition, detrimental, so harmful to Tamil language and culture, and therefore caused much public resentment. So resentment, a great anger, so great opposition. So EVR, so Periyar led a massive campaign against it. So he organized an anti-Hindi conference at Salem. It formulated a definite program of action. So one of the controversial measures of Rajaji was the introduction of Hindi as a compulsory subject in schools. So Tamil people thought it was a form of Aryan and North Indian imposition to Tamil language and culture. So Periyar organized an anti-Hindi conference at Salem, and it formulated a definite program of action. The Scheduled Caste Federation and the Muslim League extended its support to the anti-Hindi agitation. So the Scheduled Caste Federation and the Muslim League extended its support to the anti-Hindi agitation. Nadarajan and Talamuthu, so two of the enthusiastic agitators, died in prison. So Nadarajan and Talamuthu, so from Madras, so they died in the prison. A rally was organized from Tiruchirappalli to Madras. More than 1,200 protesters, including EVR, were arrested. After the resignation of the Congress ministry in 1939, the governor of Madras, who took over the control, removed Hindi as the compulsory subject. So after the resignation of the Congress ministry, the governor of Madras, who took over the administration in Madras provinces, removed Hindi as the compulsory subject. So we discussed about civil disobedience movement. So we discussed about Purna Swaraj, then Salt March to Vedaranyam, so which was led by Rajaji. Then we discussed about the widespread agitations during Salt Satyagraha. Then martyrdom of Tirupur Kumaran, then first Congress ministry, then finally about anti-Hindi agitation. Then Quit India struggle. On 8th August 1942, the Quit India resolution was passed and Gandhi gave the slogan, "Do or die." On 8th August 1942, the Quit India resolution was passed and Gandhi gave the slogan, "Do or die." So the entire Congress leadership was arrested overnight. So the entire congressmen were arrested overnight. So K. Kamraj, so who was returning from Bombay, noticed that at every railway station, the police visited with a list of local leaders and arrested them as they got down. So on 8th August 1942, the Quit India resolution was passed and Gandhi gave the slogan, "Do or die." The entire Congress ministry was arrested. The entire Congress leadership was arrested. K. Kamraj, so while returning from Bombay to Tamil Nadu, noticed that at every railway station the police waited with a list of local leaders and arrested them as they got down. Yeah. So Kamaraj gave the police the slip and got down at Arakonam itself. Yeah. So but Kamarajar, he got down at Arakonam itself. Yeah. He then worked underground and organized the people during the Quit India movement. Yeah. So Kamarajar worked underground. So he worked secretly and he organized the people during the Quit India movement. Yeah. So Kamarajar escaped from police. Yeah, so that is by before get down in the police in the railway station. So where he have to get down, he get down at Arakonam itself. Yeah, so by that he avoided arresting and he worked underground and he organized the people during the Quit India movement. Undying mass movement. So all sections of the society participated in the movement. So all sections of the society participated in the Quit India movement. Yeah. There were a large number of workers' strike, such as strike in Buckingham and Carnatic Mills, Madras Port Trust, Madras Corporation, and the electric tramway. Yeah. So students of various colleges took active part in the protest. Yeah. Many young men and women also joined the INA, Indian National Army. Yeah. So the Quit India movement was suppressed with brutal force. Yeah. So all sections of the society participated in the movement. Yeah. There were a large number of workers such as strike in Buckingham and Carnatic Mills, Madras Port Trust, Madras Corporation, and the electric tramway. Yeah. So students of various colleges took active part in the protest. Yeah. Many young men and women also joined the Indian National Army. So the Quit India movement was suppressed with brutal force. So the Royal Indian Navy Mutiny, the negotiations initiated by the newly formed Labour Party government in England, which results in India's independence. Yeah, so the Royal Indian Navy Mutiny, then the negotiations, so the Lord Mountbatten Plan. Yeah, so and also problem between Muslim League and Congress. So the Muslim League demanded for the separate country for Muslims, so called as Pakistan. Yeah, so it resulted in the independence of India on 15th August 1947. Yeah. So these things already we have discussed in Unit 8. Yeah. So we discussed about the Royal Indian Navy and also the newly elected government, Labour Party. Yeah. So in England. So new Prime Minister, so Clement Attlee. So he told that the power would be transferred to India soon. Yeah. So for that he appointed Lord Mountbatten as the Governor General of India. Yeah. So he submitted a plan called as Mountbatten Plan. In that, so India was divided into two countries. So Indian subcontinent was divided into two separate nations, India and Pakistan. Yeah. So finally, on 15th August 1947, we achieved our independence. Okay, students. So in today's class, so in 9th lesson, we have discussed about the freedom movement in Tamil Nadu. So starting from the initial political organizations. So today's class, we discussed about what happened in India, in Tamil Nadu during 1920s to 1947. So first we discussed about the South Indian Liberal Federation. Then, so what happened in Tamil Nadu during Rowlatt Act? So Rowlatt Satyagraha. Then we discussed about Khilafat movement. Then we discussed about non-cooperation movement. So non-cooperation movement, it was led by E.V. Ramasamy and Rajaji. Then we discussed about no tax campaign and temperance movement. Then the rivalry between Swaraj Party and Justice Party. Then we discussed about the Simon Commission boycott. Then civil disobedience movement, so towards Purna Swaraj, then short march to Vedaranyam, then martyrdom of Tirupur Kumaran and the first Congress ministry. So in Madras, so Rajaji formed the first Congress ministry. So he introduced sales tax in order to compensate the loss of revenue. So because of the prohibition on liquor. So then we discussed about anti-Hindi agitation. So one of the controversial measures of Rajaji was the introduction of Hindi as a compulsory subject in schools. It was opposed by Tamil people because they considered it as a form of Aryan and North Indian imposition on Tamil culture and language. Then we discussed about Quit India struggle. Then finally how India achieved independence. Okay, students. So take your book. So take page number 108. Textbook reading. So read the heading, Non-Brahmin Movement and the Challenge to Congress. So read the South Indian Liberal Federation, Justice Ministry, Government's Repressive Measures, Rowlatt Act, Rowlatt Satyagraha, then Khilafat Movement. Then homework. So I will send you the homework question in PDF format. So following this video. So write the second question. Examine the origin and growth of the non-Brahmin movement in Tamil Nadu. So that is the homework for you. So write it and read it well. Okay, va? So thank you, students. Have a nice day.